If you are a woman over 50 and you have ever walked into a holiday party and felt like you disappeared the moment you stepped through the door, if you have stood in rooms full of people and felt completely invisible, if conversations happen around you but never include you, if people look through you instead of at you, if you leave these gatherings feeling more alone than when you arrived even though you were surrounded by dozens of people, this video is for you. Because what you are experiencing is not your imagination. It is not paranoia. It is not proof that something is wrong with you. What you are experiencing is a real, documented, culturally enforced phenomenon where women over 50 become socially invisible. And understanding why this happens, how it works, and what you can do about it will change everything. This video is going to explain exactly why you feel invisible at holiday parties after 50. Not in vague terms, but in specific psychological and sociological terms based on decades of research on ageism, gender, and social dynamics. You are going to learn the 5 reasons women become invisible after 50. You are going to see how this invisibility shows up in predictable patterns at gatherings. You are going to understand the psychological damage this causes. And then, I am going to give you 10 concrete strategies to reclaim your presence, your voice, and your right to exist in social spaces without apologizing. By the end of this video, you will have language for what you have been experiencing, validation that your feelings are legitimate, and tools to protect yourself from the soul-crushing effects of being treated like you do not matter. But before we go deeper, I need something from you right now. If you are a woman over 50 who has felt invisible at holiday parties, family gatherings, or any social event, if you have stood in a room full of people and felt like a ghost, if you have tried to speak and been talked over or ignored, subscribe to this channel immediately and turn on the notification bell. This is Enough and Whole, where we talk about the real psychology of life after 50 for women. We do not pretend ageism does not exist. We do not tell you to just smile more or be more outgoing. We give you honest analysis of the cultural forces working against you and practical tools to fight back. Every week, I bring you content that sees you, values you, and refuses to let you disappear. So subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's continue. Now let me start by naming the experience so you know you are not alone. You walk into a holiday party, you are dressed well, you made an effort, you showed up. And within the first few minutes, you realize nobody is really seeing you. People make brief eye contact, and then their eyes slide past you to someone younger, someone more relevant, someone who matters more in their social calculation. You try to join a conversation and people keep talking as if you did not speak. You stand at the edge of a group and nobody makes space for you. You offer a comment and it lands in silence, but 2 minutes later, someone else says the same thing and everyone responds. You spend the entire evening working to be included, working to be seen, working to matter. And by the end, you are exhausted and you realize, I was invisible the entire time. This is not rare. This is not unusual. This is the experience of millions of women over 50 at every holiday party, every social gathering, every event where age and gender intersect to render you irrelevant in the eyes of a culture that only values women who are young, attractive, and sexually available. And the cruelest part is that this invisibility is so normalized, so culturally accepted, that when you try to name it, people tell you that you are being paranoid, that you are too sensitive, that you are imagining things. But you are not imagining things. The research is clear. The data is clear. Women over 50 experience social invisibility at rates significantly higher than men the same age and significantly higher than younger women. This is real, and it is damaging you in ways you might not even realize yet. Walter Riso teaches that one of the most damaging things you can do to a human being is make them feel like they do not exist, like their presence does not matter, like they are taking up space they do not deserve. And that is exactly what social invisibility does. It sends you the message, over and over, at every gathering, that you are not important enough to be seen, not interesting enough to be heard, not valuable enough to be included. And after years of absorbing that message, you start to believe it. You start to shrink. You start to make yourself smaller, quieter, less present. You stop trying to participate because participation has been so consistently rejected that trying feels like self-harm. And eventually, you stop going to gatherings altogether. You isolate. You withdraw. You tell yourself you prefer to be alone. But the truth is, you are protecting yourself from the unbearable pain of being in a room full of people and still feeling completely alone. So if you have felt this, if you are feeling it right now, I need you to hear this. You are not invisible because something is wrong with you. You are invisible because something is wrong with the culture. You are invisible because we live in a society that discards women the moment they are no longer young. And that is not your fault. That is not your failure. That is a systemic, cultural violence that is being committed against you. And now that you can name it, now that you can see it clearly, you can start to fight back. Not by trying to be younger, not by trying to be more, but by refusing to internalize the message that you do not matter, by reclaiming your right to take up space, by insisting on your own visibility even when the culture refuses to see you. Now let's break down exactly why this happens. Why do women become socially invisible after 50? What are the specific cultural and psychological mechanisms that cause this? Understanding the why is critical because as long as you think it is about you, as long as you think you are invisible because you are boring or unattractive or socially awkward, you will keep trying to fix yourself. But once you understand that this is systemic, that this is happening to millions of women regardless of how interesting, attractive, or socially skilled they are, you can stop blaming yourself and start recognizing this for what it is: ageism and sexism working together to erase you. The first reason is that women's value in this culture is tied to youth and sexual availability. From the moment you are born female, you are taught that your worth comes from being looked at, desired, chosen by men. Your entire social value is constructed around your appearance and your reproductive capacity. And as long as you are young and conventionally attractive, you have social currency. People pay attention to you. People include you. People care what you think because they are hoping to gain access to you sexually or socially. But the moment you age out of that category, the moment you are no longer young enough or attractive enough to be sexually relevant, that social currency evaporates, and suddenly nobody cares, nobody listens, nobody includes you. Because the only reason they were paying attention in the first place was because they wanted something from you. And now that they cannot get it, you are worthless to them. This is brutal. This is dehumanizing. But this is how the culture works. Men do not experience this the same way because men's value is not tied to youth and sexual availability. Men's value is tied to power, status, money, competence. And those things can increase with age. So older men are often more visible, more respected, more listened to than younger men. But women lose visibility with every passing year. And by the time you hit 50, unless you are exceptionally wealthy, exceptionally powerful, or exceptionally famous, you are socially irrelevant. You are background noise. You are the woman nobody remembers was even at the party. The second reason is invisibility is a form of social control. When women age, they become dangerous. Not physically dangerous, psychologically dangerous. Because older women have lived long enough to see through the lies. They have accumulated enough experience to recognize manipulation, to name dysfunction, to refuse to participate in systems that exploit them. Older women are less likely to stay silent, less likely to accommodate, less likely to prioritize men's comfort over their own truth. And that makes them a threat. So the culture neutralizes that threat by making them invisible. If nobody sees you, if nobody listens to you, if nobody takes you seriously, then your truth does not matter. Your voice does not matter. You can say whatever you want because nobody is paying attention anyway. Invisibility is how the culture silences women without having to openly censor them. Walter Riso teaches that any time a group is systematically marginalized, it is because that group threatens the existing power structure. And older women threaten the power structure because they are no longer invested in pleasing it. They are no longer trying to be chosen. They are no longer performing femininity in ways that benefit men. They are just existing as full human beings with opinions, needs, and boundaries. And that existence is intolerable to a system built on women's subordination. So the system makes them disappear. Not literally, socially. And social disappearance is just as effective as physical disappearance when it comes to maintaining control. The third reason is that aging is associated with death, and the culture is terrified of death. When people look at you as an older woman, they are not just seeing you. They are seeing their own mortality. They are seeing what they will become. And that terrifies them. So they look away, they avoid you, they pretend you are not there. Because acknowledging you means acknowledging that aging happens, that bodies change, that youth does not last forever, that death is coming for all of us. And most people would rather live in denial than face that reality. So they erase you. They make you invisible so they do not have to think about what you represent, and you pay the price for their fear. The fourth reason is that holiday parties and social gatherings are performative spaces. They are not actually about connection. They are about performing social status, about being seen with the right people, about networking, about reinforcing social hierarchies. And in those spaces, older women have no currency. You cannot boost someone's status by being seen with you. You are not a trophy. You are not a useful connection. You are not someone who makes other people look good. So people ignore you, not because you are not interesting, but because including you does not serve their social agenda. And in spaces where everything is transactional, where every interaction is a calculation of value, you are simply not valuable enough to matter. The fifth reason is internalized invisibility. After years of being ignored, dismissed, and treated as irrelevant, you start to make yourself invisible. You stop trying to participate. You dress in ways that do not draw attention. You stay quiet in conversations. You position yourself at the edges of rooms. You leave early. You stop making eye contact. You shrink your presence because every time you have tried to be visible, you have been ignored or rejected. So you protect yourself by disappearing before anyone can make you disappear. And that internalized invisibility becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are invisible because the culture made you invisible, and now you are reinforcing your own invisibility as a survival strategy. And breaking that cycle requires recognizing that your invisibility is not natural, not inevitable, and not your fault. Let me go deeper into each of these reasons because understanding them fully is what allows you to stop taking invisibility personally. The first reason, that women's value is tied to youth and sexual availability, is not something women created. This is not your fault. You did not wake up one day and decide your worth should be based on how you look. This was constructed by a patriarchal system that benefits from reducing women to objects. And the moment you can no longer serve that function, the moment you age out of being sexually desirable in the narrow, limited way the culture defines it, you become disposable. This is why women in their 20s get attention from strangers, why women in their 30s still get looked at, why women in their 40s start to notice the shift, and why women over 50 feel like they have completely disappeared. And here is the cruelest part. You internalize this system. You spent decades believing that your value came from your appearance. You spent decades performing femininity in ways that served the male gaze. You dieted, you wore makeup, you dressed to be attractive, you smiled to be pleasant, you made yourself smaller to be non-threatening, and for a while, it worked. For a while, you had social currency. For a while, people paid attention. But you did not realize that the attention was conditional. It was not about you as a person. It was about you as an object. And now that you no longer serve that purpose, the attention has evaporated. And you are left feeling worthless because your entire sense of worth was built on a foundation that was always going to collapse the moment you aged. This realization is devastating, but it is also liberating. Because once you see that your invisibility is not about you failing as a person, but about you aging out of a system that was always exploitative, you can start to build a different foundation for your worth. A foundation based on who you actually are, what you actually value, what you have actually accomplished, what you actually have to offer. And that foundation does not collapse when you turn 50. It gets stronger. The second reason that invisibility is social control needs more explanation because most people do not see it this way. They think invisibility is just a side effect of aging, an unfortunate consequence. But it is not. It is deliberate. It is strategic. Because older women are dangerous to systems of power. Think about it. Older women have lived long enough to see how the world actually works. They have seen the lies. They have experienced the exploitation. They have survived the abuse. They have raised children, built careers, navigated divorce, buried parents, endured loss. They know things, and that knowledge makes them powerful. But power in women is threatening, especially when that power is not asking for permission, especially when that power is no longer trying to please, especially when that power is willing to name what is wrong, what is unjust, what is broken. So the culture neutralizes that threat by making older women invisible, by making sure their voices are not heard, by making sure their presence is not acknowledged, by making sure they are dismissed, marginalized, erased. Because if nobody listens to you, if nobody takes you seriously, if nobody acknowledges your existence, then your power is neutralized. You can be as wise, as experienced, as knowledgeable as you want. But if nobody is paying attention, it does not matter. And the evidence for this is everywhere. Think about who gets platforms in this culture, who gets interviewed on television, who gets quoted in articles, who gets listened to in meetings. It is young women and older men. Young women are still performing the role of being pleasant, attractive, non-threatening. Older men have accumulated power through age. But older women? Older women are shut out because they are no longer performing femininity in ways that serve men, and they have not been allowed to accumulate institutional power the way men have. So they are caught in this middle space where they are too old to be valued as objects and not powerful enough to be valued as authorities. And that middle space is invisibility. Now let's talk about how invisibility actually shows up at holiday parties. Because it is not always obvious. Sometimes it is subtle. Sometimes it is so normalized that you do not even recognize it as invisibility. You just feel bad and you cannot figure out why. So I am going to describe specific behaviors and patterns so you can see them clearly the next time they happen. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. And once you cannot unsee them, you can decide how you want to respond. The first pattern is conversational erasure. You are standing in a group. Someone is talking. They finish. You start to speak. And someone interrupts you mid-sentence and starts a completely different topic. Or you say something and nobody responds. There is just silence. And then someone else says something and the conversation continues as if you never spoke. Or you make a joke and nobody laughs, but 5 minutes later, someone else makes the same joke and everyone laughs. This is not coincidence. This is erasure. This is people communicating, consciously or unconsciously, that what you say does not matter, that your voice is not worth hearing. And it happens to older women constantly. The second pattern is physical exclusion. You approach a group of people who are talking, and instead of opening the circle to make space for you, they close ranks. They keep talking. They do not acknowledge your presence. You stand there for a minute, maybe two, waiting to be included, and nobody includes you. So you walk away feeling humiliated. Or you are sitting in a chair and people arrange themselves in a conversation circle that does not include you. You are physically present, but socially absent. And you sit there watching other people connect while you are completely excluded. This is deliberate. It is not that people did not notice you. They noticed. They just decided you do not matter enough to include. The third pattern is being treated as functional rather than social. People interact with you only when they need something from you. They ask you where the bathroom is. They ask you to take their coat. They ask you to pass them a drink. But they do not ask you questions about yourself. They do not show interest in your life. They do not treat you like a person who has thoughts, experiences, or value. You are a function. You are there to serve. And the moment you are no longer useful, you cease to exist. This is especially common at family gatherings where older women are expected to cook, serve, and clean up, but not to actually participate in the social event as equals. The fourth pattern is visual dismissal. People look at you and their eyes glaze over. They scan past you as if you are furniture. They make brief eye contact and then immediately look for someone more interesting. You can see the moment they decide you are not worth their attention. And that moment, that visible dismissal, is one of the most painful experiences of invisibility. Because it is not that they did not see you. They saw you. They just decided, in real time, that you are irrelevant. And that rejection is visceral. It activates the same pain centers in your brain as physical injury. The fifth pattern is being forgotten. You attend a gathering. You have conversations with people. And the next time you see those people, they do not remember you. They do not remember your name. They do not remember talking to you. It is as if you were never there. And this happens over and over. You are so forgettable, so unremarkable, so invisible, that you leave no trace. And after a while, you start to wonder, do I even exist? If nobody remembers me, if nobody sees me, if I can be in a room and leave no impression whatsoever, am I real? And that existential crisis is what invisibility creates. It makes you doubt your own existence. Walter Riso teaches that to be human is to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be recognized as a being who matters. And when that recognition is systematically withheld, it causes profound psychological harm. It is not something you can just brush off. It is not something you can ignore. It damages your sense of self, your sense of worth, your sense of belonging in the world. And the fact that it happens to millions of women does not make it less damaging. It makes it a public health crisis that nobody is talking about. Let me give you more specific examples so you can recognize these patterns in real time. Conversational erasure happens in predictable ways. You are at a holiday party. Someone asks a question to the group. Has anyone been to that new restaurant downtown? You have been there. You start to answer. And before you finish your first sentence, someone else starts talking about a completely different restaurant. Your answer just disappears into the air. Nobody says, "Hold on, let her finish." Nobody circles back to you. Your contribution is simply erased. Or this. You make a comment about something. Nobody responds. The conversation just continues as if you said nothing. But 10 minutes later, a man says almost exactly what you said, and everyone responds enthusiastically. "That is such a good point. I never thought of it that way." And you sit there thinking, I said that exact thing. And nobody heard me. This is not paranoia. This is documented. Research shows that women are interrupted more than men, and older women are interrupted more than younger women. And when women make contributions in group settings, those contributions are more likely to be ignored or attributed to someone else. This is real. This is measurable. This is not in your head. Physical exclusion also has patterns. You walk up to a group of 3 people talking. They are standing in a triangle formation. And instead of opening the triangle to make it a square that includes you, they shift slightly to keep the triangle closed. You are now standing outside the group, literally excluded by their bodies. Or you are sitting at a table and people arrange their chairs to face each other, but not you. You are at the table, but you are not part of the conversation because nobody is oriented toward you. This is body language communicating. You are not part of this or this. You are at a party, and there are two conversations happening. The interesting, engaged, lively conversation happening with younger people, and the polite, surface-level, dying conversation happening with older people. And you are automatically placed in the older people conversation, regardless of your interests, your personality, or what you actually want to talk about. You are categorized by age and placed accordingly, and that placement is exclusion. Because the message is, you do not belong with the people having real conversations. You belong with the people who are being humored until they leave. Being treated as functional shows up constantly. You are at a family gathering. People ask you to get things. Can you bring more napkins? Can you check if there is more wine? Can you help clean up? But nobody asks you, what have you been reading? What are you excited about? What is your opinion on this? You are there to serve. You are there to make sure everyone else is comfortable. But you are not there to be engaged with as a person who has thoughts, interests, experiences worth discussing. You are a function, and the moment you stop being useful, you cease to exist. Now we need to talk about what invisibility actually does to you psychologically. Because most people minimize this. They say things like, just ignore it, who cares what other people think? You do not need validation from strangers. But those responses completely miss the point. Human beings are social animals. We are wired for connection. We are wired to be seen, heard, and valued by our communities. And when that fundamental need is not met, when you are systematically made invisible, it causes real, measurable psychological damage. The first damage is erosion of self-worth. Every time you are ignored, dismissed, or erased, you internalize a message. I do not matter. And if that happens once, you can recover. But if it happens at every social gathering for years, for decades, the message sinks in. You start to believe it. You start to think, maybe I am not interesting. Maybe I am not valuable. Maybe I do not deserve to be included. And that belief, that internalized worthlessness, affects every area of your life. You stop advocating for yourself. You stop pursuing opportunities. You stop believing you have anything to offer. Because if the world is telling you that you do not matter, why would you believe otherwise? The second damage is social withdrawal. If every social interaction leaves you feeling invisible and rejected, eventually you stop trying. You stop going to parties. You stop attending gatherings. You isolate. You tell yourself you prefer to be alone. But the truth is, you are protecting yourself from the unbearable pain of being in social spaces where you are made to feel like you do not exist. And that isolation compounds. Because the less you interact socially, the less social skills you practice, the more anxious you become about social situations, and the harder it becomes to re-enter social spaces even when you want to. You get trapped in a cycle where invisibility leads to isolation, and isolation reinforces invisibility. The third damage is loss of voice. When you speak and nobody listens, you stop speaking. You learn that your words do not matter, that your opinions are irrelevant, that your contributions are unwelcome, and over time, you lose access to your own voice. You become silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have been trained that saying things is pointless. And that silence is devastating. Because your voice is how you assert your existence in the world. Your voice is how you claim space, how you express your truth, how you connect with others. And when you lose your voice, you lose a fundamental part of yourself. The fourth damage is chronic shame. Invisibility creates shame because it sends the message, there is something wrong with you. If you were worthy, people would see you. If you were valuable, people would include you. If you were interesting, people would listen. So the fact that they do not must mean that you are defective. And that shame becomes a constant companion. You walk into every social situation already ashamed, already convinced that you will be rejected, already preparing for the pain of being invisible. And that shame makes you smaller. It makes you apologize for existing. It makes you try to take up as little space as possible so you do not offend anyone with your presence. Walter Riso teaches that chronic shame is one of the most toxic emotional states a person can experience because it attacks your core sense of self. It does not just say you did something bad, it says you are bad. And once you believe that, recovery is incredibly difficult because everything you experience gets filtered through that belief. Someone ignores you? It is because you are worthless. Someone dismisses you? It is because you do not matter. And you cannot see that the problem is not you. The problem is a culture that has decided women over 50 are disposable. Now I need to pause and ask you something directly. Which of these damages resonates most strongly with you? Type 1 in the comments if it is erosion of self-worth. Type 2 if it is social withdrawal and isolation. Type 3 if it is loss of voice and silence. Type 4 if it is chronic shame. Just type the number. You do not have to explain unless you want to. But naming which damage is loudest in your life is the first step toward healing it. So pause right now. Go to the comments. Type your number. See how many other women type the same one. You are not alone in this. Thousands of women are experiencing the exact same psychological damage. And recognizing that is part of the solution. Let me go deeper into each of these forms of psychological damage because understanding the full cost is what motivates you to protect yourself. The erosion of self-worth does not happen overnight. It is gradual. It is cumulative. Every time you walk into a room and nobody sees you, a small piece of your sense of worth chips away. Every time you speak and nobody listens, you internalize the message that your words do not matter. Every time you try to connect and are rejected, you start to believe that you are not worthy of connection. And after years, after decades of these micro-rejections, your sense of self becomes so damaged that you genuinely believe you have nothing to offer. You look in the mirror and see someone forgettable, someone boring, someone who does not deserve attention. And that belief affects everything. It affects your career because you stop advocating for yourself. It affects your relationships because you accept crumbs instead of demanding respect. It affects your health because you stop believing you are worth taking care of. The erosion of self-worth is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is slow, but it is deadly. Social withdrawal is equally insidious. It starts with avoiding one event. You tell yourself, I just do not feel like going tonight. And that is true. You do not feel like going because going means enduring invisibility. But you do not name it that way. You tell yourself you are tired, you are busy, you prefer quiet nights. And the next time there is an event, it is easier to say no. And the time after that, you are not even invited anymore because people assume you are not interested. And before you know it, months have passed and you have not been to a single social event. You are isolated. And isolation feels safe at first, safe from rejection, safe from invisibility. But isolation also means loneliness. It means no connection at all. And humans are not built for that. We need connection. We need to be seen. And when you cut yourself off from all social interaction to protect yourself from bad interaction, you also cut yourself off from the possibility of good interaction. You throw out the entire possibility of connection to avoid the pain of bad connection. And that is a devastating cost. Loss of voice is one of the most painful damages because your voice is your power. Your voice is how you assert yourself in the world. It is how you set boundaries. It is how you ask for what you need. It is how you share your truth. And when you lose your voice, you lose access to all of that. You become passive. You become silent. You become someone things happen to instead of someone who makes things happen. And the loss is not just external, it is internal. You stop being able to hear your own voice. You stop knowing what you think, what you want, what you believe, because you have been silenced for so long that you have silenced yourself. And reclaiming that voice requires not just speaking externally, but listening internally. It requires asking yourself, what do I actually think about this? What do I actually want? And then honoring those answers even when nobody else cares. Chronic shame is perhaps the most damaging of all because shame attacks your identity. Guilt says you did something bad. Shame says you are bad. And when invisibility is constant, when it happens at every gathering for years, you start to believe that the invisibility is proof of your badness, proof that you are defective, proof that something is fundamentally wrong with you. And shame makes you hide. It makes you shrink. It makes you apologize for existing. It makes you try to take up as little space as possible because you believe that your presence is an imposition, that you are burdening people just by being there. And that belief is soul-crushing, because you cannot thrive when you believe you are inherently defective. You cannot connect when you believe you are inherently unworthy. You cannot grow when you are spending all your energy trying to hide the parts of yourself you believe are unacceptable. Shame is the enemy of growth, and invisibility creates chronic shame that poisons everything. Now we get to the practical tools, the strategies you can use to protect yourself from invisibility, to reclaim your presence, and to refuse to internalize the message that you do not matter. I am going to give you 10 tools. These are not about making yourself more visible by performing femininity better, or trying to look younger, or being more outgoing. These are about internal strength, strategic behavior, and refusing to disappear just because the culture wants you to. The first tool is radical internal reframing. Right now, when you experience invisibility, your brain interprets it as proof that something is wrong with you. You think, I am being ignored because I am boring, because I am old, because I am not pretty enough, because I do not have anything interesting to say. But that interpretation is causing you enormous pain. So you need to consciously, deliberately reframe what invisibility means. The new frame is this: I am being ignored because this culture is ageist and sexist. I am being dismissed because we live in a society that devalues women over 50. This is not about me. This is about a sick system, and I refuse to internalize their sickness as my deficiency. This reframe is not about denial. It is not about pretending invisibility does not hurt. It hurts. But the hurt comes from believing that you deserve to be invisible, and you do not. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to matter. And the fact that the culture refuses to see you does not change that truth. So every time you feel invisible, every time someone dismisses you or talks over you or forgets you, you catch the thought that says, something is wrong with me, and you replace it with, something is wrong with them. And you practice that replacement over and over until it becomes automatic. Walter Riso teaches that cognitive reframing is one of the most powerful psychological tools we have because it changes the meaning we assign to experiences, and meaning determines suffering. Two women experience the same invisibility. One believes it is proof she is worthless, and she suffers enormously. The other believes it is proof the culture is broken, and she suffers less. The circumstance is the same. The suffering is different, because the story is different. So change the story. Make invisibility about them, not about you. The second tool is strategic preparation before social events. You cannot walk into a holiday party hoping you will be seen and included. Hope is not a strategy. You need to prepare mentally and emotionally for the reality that you might be ignored, dismissed, or erased. And that preparation protects you. Because when you are expecting invisibility, when you have already decided how you will respond to it, it does not ambush you. It does not destroy you. You see it coming, and you are ready. Here is what preparation looks like. The day before or the morning of the event, sit down and get honest with yourself. Acknowledge, this gathering might be difficult. I might feel invisible. People might ignore me. And that is okay. I am going to survive it. Then, decide in advance what success looks like for this event. And success is not, everyone includes me and I have a wonderful time. That is setting yourself up for disappointment. Success is, I attend. I show up as myself. I do not shrink. I do not apologize for existing, and I leave when I need to. That is success. Anything beyond that is bonus. Then, decide how long you will stay. Do not go to an event with no exit plan. Decide, I will stay for 1 hour, or 2 hours, or 30 minutes. Whatever feels manageable. And when that time is up, you leave. You do not wait to be rejected. You do not stay until you are so depleted you can barely walk. You decide in advance when you are leaving, and you honor that decision. And that control, that agency, makes all the difference. Because you are not passive. You are not waiting for the event to happen to you. You are actively managing your participation. Finally, identify 1 or 2 people at the gathering who you know are safe. People who see you. People who will talk to you like you are a human being. And if the event becomes unbearable, you find those people. You talk to them. You do not try to force connection with people who have already shown you they do not value you. You go where you are valued. And if there is nobody at the event who values you, that is information. That tells you this is not your community. And you can make different choices in the future. Let me tell you about Sharon. She is 61. She used to go to holiday parties and spend the entire time feeling devastated by invisibility. This year, she prepared differently. She decided in advance, I am staying for exactly 1 hour. I am not trying to be included in every conversation. I am going to talk to my friend Lisa, and then I am leaving. And that is exactly what she did. She arrived. She found Lisa. They talked for 45 minutes. She said goodbye. She left. And instead of going home destroyed, she went home proud. Because she had shown up, participated on her own terms, and left before the event could harm her. Sharon told me, preparation gave me power. I was not hoping for something different. I was managing reality. And that made all the difference. That is what strategic preparation does. It shifts you from passive victim to active agent. And that shift is everything. Let me give you a more detailed preparation protocol. The night before the event, sit down with a journal or a piece of paper. Write down, what am I afraid will happen tomorrow? Be specific. Write, I am afraid nobody will talk to me. I am afraid I will be ignored. I am afraid I will try to join conversations and be excluded. I am afraid I will leave feeling worthless. Write all of it. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Because unnamed fear is overwhelming. Named fear is manageable. Then write, what is the worst thing that could actually happen? And be realistic. The worst thing is not that you will die. The worst thing is that you will feel invisible and rejected. That is painful, but it is not lethal. You have survived it before. You will survive it again. Then write, how will I take care of myself if that happens? And plan it. If I start to feel invisible, I will go to the bathroom and do grounding exercises. If I am being ignored, I will find the 1 or 2 people who do see me. If it becomes unbearable, I will leave. You are not hoping it will not happen. You are planning for it to happen and deciding in advance how you will handle it. Then write, what does success look like for this event? And make it realistic. Success is, I show up. I stay for the amount of time I decided. I speak at least once. I do not shrink or apologize for existing. I leave when I need to. That is success. You are not measuring success by how many people include you or how much fun you have. You are measuring success by how well you take care of yourself in a difficult situation. And that reframe changes everything. Because success is now entirely within your control. Finally, do a physical grounding exercise before you leave for the event. Stand with your feet firmly on the ground. Put your hand on your heart. Take 10 slow breaths and say out loud, I am going to this event as myself. I am not going to shrink. I am not going to apologize for existing. I'm allowed to take up space. I'm allowed to speak. I'm allowed to leave when I need to. My worth is not determined by whether people see me. I see myself. And that is enough. Say it until you believe it. Or at least until you can act like you believe it. Because sometimes acting comes before believing. The third tool is using physical assertiveness to claim space. Invisibility is not just about being ignored conversationally. It is about being physically erased. People stand in ways that exclude you. They form circles that do not include you. They position themselves so you are literally pushed to the margins. And if you accept that positioning, if you stay at the edges, you reinforce your own invisibility. So you need to learn how to physically claim space in ways that communicate. I exist. I belong here. I am not going anywhere. Here is what that looks like. When you approach a group of people who are talking, you do not stand at the edge waiting to be invited in. You step into the circle. You make space for yourself. You position your body so you are part of the group, not outside of it. And you do it with confidence, not aggression, not apology, just calm, quiet confidence that says, I am here. If people shift to accommodate you, great. If they do not, you stay anyway. You do not leave just because they did not welcome you. You stay until you decide to leave. This feels uncomfortable at first. It feels rude, but it is not rude. What is rude is people forming a circle that deliberately excludes you. What is rude is people closing ranks when you approach. You are simply correcting that rudeness by refusing to be erased. And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. You learn that most people do not even consciously realize they are excluding you. And when you insert yourself confidently, they adjust without even thinking about it. Because most exclusion is unconscious. It is habit. It is social conditioning. And you can interrupt that conditioning by refusing to participate in your own erasure. Walter Riso teaches that body language is communication. And if your body language says, I do not belong here, I am taking up space I should not be taking, I am sorry for existing, people will treat you accordingly. But if your body language says, I belong here, I have every right to be in this space, I am not asking for permission, people respond differently. Not always, not everyone, but enough to make a difference. So stand tall, make eye contact, take up space, do not shrink, do not apologize with your body for the crime of being over 50. The fourth tool is strategic interruption. One of the most common ways invisibility manifests is being talked over. You start to speak and someone interrupts you. And you stop, you defer, you let them talk, and your thought goes unheard. This happens to women constantly, and it happens to older women even more. So you need to learn how to interrupt back. Not in a mean way, not in an aggressive way, but in a firm, calm way that communicates. I was speaking. I am going to finish. Here is what that sounds like. Someone interrupts you. Instead of stopping, you keep talking. You raise your voice slightly, not yelling, just louder. And you say, excuse me, I was not finished. Or, hold on, let me complete my thought. And then you finish what you were saying. Most of the time, the person who interrupted will back down. Because they were not consciously trying to silence you. They were just following social habits. And when you name it, when you push back, they usually stop. But sometimes they do not. Sometimes they keep talking over you. And if that happens, you have a choice. You can escalate. I need you to stop interrupting me. Or you can disengage. You stop trying to talk to that person and you find someone else who will actually listen. Both are valid choices. What is not valid is staying silent. What is not valid is letting yourself be erased over and over without ever defending your right to speak. Let me tell you about Donna. She is 58. For years, she was talked over at every social gathering. She would start to say something and someone, usually a man, would interrupt. And she would stop. She would smile. She would let it go. This year, she decided to try something different. At a holiday party, she started to speak. A man interrupted her, and instead of stopping, she kept talking. She said calmly but firmly, "Excuse me, I was not finished." The man looked shocked, but he stopped, and Donna finished her thought. And for the first time in years, she felt powerful. Not because she was mean, but because she had defended her right to be heard. Donna told me, "I was terrified. I thought everyone would think I was being difficult, but nobody even reacted. It was like I had given myself permission to exist. And that permission changed everything. That is what strategic interruption does. It gives you permission to exist, to speak, to be heard. And you do not need anyone else's permission to give yourself that." Let me give you more specific language for strategic interruption, because this is one of the hardest skills to practice, and most women need exact scripts. When someone interrupts you, your instinct is to stop talking. You have been trained your entire life that interrupting back is rude. But here is what you need to understand. They already broke the social contract by interrupting you. You are not breaking the contract by defending yourself. You are restoring the contract. So when someone interrupts, you have several options depending on the situation and your comfort level. Option 1 is the calm redirect. You are mid-sentence. Someone interrupts. You pause for half a second, then continue speaking, slightly louder, as if they did not interrupt. You do not acknowledge the interruption. You just keep going. This works surprisingly often because most people are not consciously trying to silence you. They are just following bad habits. And when you keep talking, they usually stop. Option 2 is the explicit boundary. Someone interrupts. You stop. You look at them. You say calmly, "I was not finished." Then you continue. This is more direct. It names what happened, and it communicates, "I am not going to let you erase me." Option 3 is the group appeal. Someone interrupts you repeatedly in a group setting. You say calmly but firmly, "I would like to finish my thought without being interrupted." You are not attacking the person. You are stating what you need, and you are doing it in front of witnesses. This is more confrontational, but sometimes necessary when someone is persistently talking over you. Option 4 is disengagement. Someone interrupts you. You recognize this person is not going to let you speak, so you stop trying to talk to them. You turn to someone else in the group and direct your comment to that person instead. You are not fighting. You are strategically choosing who gets your energy. The key is practicing these responses in low-stakes situations first. Practice with the grocery store clerk. Practice with customer service on the phone. Practice in online conversations. Because you need the language to be automatic. You need your body to know what to do, so your brain does not have to figure it out in the moment when you are already activated. And every time you successfully defend your right to speak, you build a little more confidence. You prove to yourself, "I can protect myself. I do not have to accept being silenced. My voice matters." The fifth tool is choosing intentional connections over broad inclusion. Here is a truth that might hurt, but is also liberating. You do not need everyone at the party to see you. You do not need to be included in every conversation. You do not need to be the center of attention. What you need is 1 or 2 genuine connections, 1 or 2 people who actually see you, listen to you, value you. And if you can create those connections, the rest of the invisibility becomes bearable. Because you are not invisible. You are just invisible to people who do not matter. So instead of trying to be included everywhere, instead of working to get the attention of people who have already decided you are irrelevant, focus your energy on the people who are capable of seeing you. Seek out other women your age. Seek out people who are sitting alone. Seek out the people who look like they do not quite fit either, and start conversations with them. Ask real questions. Listen to their answers. Be present. And you will find that those connections, even if they are brief, are infinitely more valuable than being ignored by a room full of people. This is not giving up. This is strategic focus. You are not trying to prove your worth to people who have already decided you do not have worth. You are spending your energy where it will actually be received. And that is wise. That is self-protective. That is you recognizing that some people are not your people. And that is okay. You do not need to be everyone's people. You just need to find your people. The sixth tool is leaving with dignity when staying becomes harmful. You are not required to stay at any social event that is damaging you. You are not required to endure invisibility for hours just because you were invited. You are allowed to leave, early, without explanation, without apology. And leaving is not failure. Leaving is self-care. Leaving is you recognizing that your emotional health is more important than social obligation. Here is how to leave with dignity. You do not announce it dramatically. You do not make a scene. You simply find the host, thank them briefly, and leave. Thank you for having me. I need to head out now. That is all. You do not explain why. You do not apologize. You do not give people an opportunity to guilt you into staying. You just leave. And if people ask why you are leaving so early, you have a prepared response. I have another commitment. I am not feeling well. I have an early morning. All of those are true. Your commitment is to yourself. You are not feeling well emotionally. You do have an early morning because you are going to wake up tomorrow and not hate yourself for staying in a harmful situation. And here is the most important part. You leave without shame. You do not beat yourself up for leaving. You do not tell yourself you should have tried harder or stayed longer. You recognize that leaving was an act of self-respect. You protected yourself. You chose yourself. And that is something to be proud of. Let me tell you about Barbara. She is 64. She went to a family holiday party. Within 30 minutes, she realized she was invisible. Nobody was talking to her. Nobody was including her. And instead of staying for 3 more hours like she usually did, she left. She thanked the host and walked out. Her family called her later and asked why she left. She said, "I was not enjoying myself, so I left." They were offended. She did not care. Because for the first time in her life, she had chosen her own comfort over their expectations. Barbara told me, "I thought I would feel guilty, but I felt free. Free from pretending. Free from forcing myself to endure something that was harming me. And that freedom was worth their disapproval." That is the gift of leaving with dignity. It teaches you that you can protect yourself, that you do not have to endure harm, that your comfort matters. Before we continue with the final tools, I need you to do something. If this video is helping you understand that your invisibility is not your fault, if you are starting to see that you can reclaim your presence and your voice, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications. Because next week, I am releasing a video about how to build a social circle after 50 when you feel like you have no friends and no community. You need that video. So subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's finish with the remaining tools. The 7th tool is creating visibility through contribution, not performance. One of the mistakes women make when trying to combat invisibility is they try to perform. They try to be more interesting, more charming, more entertaining. They try to dress in ways that get attention. They try to say clever things. And all of that is exhausting. And it rarely works. Because the problem is not that you are not interesting enough. The problem is that the culture has decided you do not matter. So performing harder does not solve the problem. But there is another way to create visibility, and that is through contribution. Instead of trying to be the center of attention, you become useful. You help set up. You help serve. You engage people in conversations by asking them questions about themselves. You make introductions. You facilitate connection between other people. And in doing that, you become visible not as an object to be looked at, but as a force in the room. As someone who makes things happen. As someone who adds value. And that visibility is more sustainable and more powerful than performance-based visibility. This does not mean you become the servant. This does not mean you do all the labor while everyone else socializes. That is just another form of invisibility. What I am talking about is choosing to be actively engaged in the social space in ways that give you purpose and presence. You are not waiting to be included. You are creating inclusion. You are not hoping someone will see you. You are making yourself impossible to ignore by being genuinely helpful and engaged. And that shift from passive to active changes everything. The eighth tool is finding and building your own communities outside of mainstream social spaces. If holiday parties and traditional gatherings consistently make you feel invisible, maybe those are not your spaces. Maybe you need to find different communities. Communities where women over 50 are valued. Communities built around shared interests, shared values, shared experiences. Communities where age is an asset, not a liability. This might mean joining groups specifically for women over 50. Book clubs, hiking groups, volunteer organizations, art classes, political activism groups, online communities. Any space where the focus is on what you can contribute, what you have to offer, rather than how you look or how old you are. And in those spaces, you will find that invisibility disappears because you are surrounded by people who see you, who value you, who recognize that you have decades of experience, wisdom, and strength to offer. Building these communities takes time. It takes effort. It takes showing up consistently even when you do not feel like it. But it is worth it, because the alternative is continuing to show up in spaces that erase you and hoping that somehow, magically, they will change. They will not change. The culture is not going to suddenly start valuing older women, so you have to create your own spaces where you are valued, where you are seen, where you matter. Let me tell you about Eleanor. She is 66. For years, she went to her company's holiday parties and felt invisible. Nobody talked to her, nobody included her. She was just the older woman in the corner. So she stopped going, and instead, she joined a women's hiking group for women over 50. And in that group, she is seen. She is valued. She has made real friends. She has found her people. And she no longer cares that her co-workers ignore her at parties, because she has a community where she matters. Eleanor told me, I spent so many years trying to fit into spaces that did not want me, and it was killing me. Finding my own community saved my life. Not dramatically, but quietly. I stopped feeling invisible because I was finally in spaces where people actually saw me. That is the power of building your own communities. It removes you from spaces where you are erased and places you in spaces where you are celebrated. Let me talk more about what it means to find your communities, because this is not as simple as just joining a group. Finding your people after 50 requires intentionality, vulnerability, and time. You cannot just show up once and expect to belong. You have to show up consistently. You have to be willing to be seen. You have to be willing to risk rejection again. And that is terrifying when you have spent years being invisible. But it is also necessary, because without community, isolation will kill you. Not dramatically, quietly, but it will kill you. Here is what building community looks like practically. First, you identify what actually matters to you. Not what you think should matter, what actually matters. What are you interested in? What do you value? What kind of people do you want to be around? Be specific. If you say nice people, that is too vague. Nice according to whose definition? What you are looking for are people who share your values, your interests, your stage of life. People who are also navigating what it means to be a woman over 50. People who are also figuring out how to exist in a culture that wants to erase them. Then you research what communities exist. Look for women's groups in your area. Look for groups focused on activities you care about: hiking, reading, art, volunteering, political activism, spirituality. Look online if there are no local options. Join forums, Facebook groups, online communities specifically for women over 50. The format does not matter as much as the fact that you are intentionally seeking out spaces where women like you gather. And then, this is the hard part, you show up. Not once, not twice, consistently. every week or every month, depending on the group. You show up even when you do not feel like it, even when you feel awkward, even when you are not sure you belong yet, because belonging is built through repeated presence. And while you are showing up, you practice being visible. You share. You ask questions. You offer help. You let people see you. Not the performed version of you, the real version. The version that is tired, that is struggling, that is trying to figure things out. Because vulnerability is what creates real connection. Perfection creates distance. So you risk being real. And some people will not be able to handle that. Some people will judge you. Some people will reject you. But some people will see you and say, "Me too. I feel that too. I am struggling with that too." And those people become your people. Eleanor, the woman I mentioned earlier, told me it took her 6 months of showing up to the hiking group before she felt like she belonged. 6 months of feeling awkward, of not knowing anyone, of wondering if she should quit. But she kept showing up. And gradually, people started to know her name. People started to seek her out. People started to include her in conversations. And by month 7, she had made 2 real friends, 2 women who saw her, who valued her, who called her when they were struggling. And those 2 friendships changed her life, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. And real is what she had been missing for years. The 9th tool is practicing reclaiming your voice in low-stakes situations. If you have lost your voice, if you have become silent because years of being ignored have taught you that speaking is pointless, you need to rebuild that capacity slowly. You cannot go from total silence to confidently speaking in a room full of people who dismiss you. You need practice. And that practice needs to happen in safer spaces. So start small. Practice speaking up in situations where the stakes are low. At the grocery store, make small talk with the cashier. At a coffee shop, ask someone a question. In an online community, post a comment. In a small group setting, share one thought. And every time you speak and you are heard, even in these small ways, you rebuild your confidence. You remind yourself, I have a voice. My voice matters. People do listen. And that confidence builds over time until you can bring it into harder spaces. Walter Riso teaches that confidence is not something you wait to feel. Confidence is something you build through action. You do not wait until you feel confident to speak. You speak even when you are terrified, and the act of speaking builds the confidence. So practice, over and over, in small ways, and gradually your voice will come back. Not because you fixed yourself, but because you gave yourself permission to exist out loud again. The 10th and final tool is modeling visibility for other women. Once you start reclaiming your own presence, once you start refusing to be invisible, you become a model for other women. And that matters, because every time another woman sees you take up space, sees you speak even when people try to talk over you, sees you leave when a situation is harmful, she learns. I can do that too. I do not have to disappear. I do not have to stay silent. I do not have to endure invisibility. So be visible not just for yourself, but for the women watching you. Speak up. Take up space. Do not shrink. Do not apologize. And when you see other women being erased, include them. Make space for them in conversations. Ask them questions. Listen to their answers. Introduce them to other people. Be the person for them that you wish someone had been for you. Because visibility is not a competition. There is not a limited amount of visibility, and you have to fight other women for it. Visibility expands when we lift each other up. Let me tell you about Grace. She is 62. She started practicing these tools. She started speaking up. She started taking up space. And one day, a younger woman pulled her aside and said, "Watching you has changed my life. I have been so scared of getting older. But watching you refuse to disappear has shown me that I do not have to disappear either," Grace cried, because she realized her visibility was not just about her. It was about creating a different model of what aging could look like for women. A model where you do not shrink, you do not silence yourself, you do not disappear. You keep existing loudly and unapologetically. Grace told me, "I did not realize I was being watched. I thought I was just surviving." But apparently, survival can be revolutionary when you do it visibly. That is the truth. Your refusal to be invisible is revolutionary. Your refusal to shrink is political. Your refusal to stay silent is an act of resistance. And that resistance matters, not just for you, for every woman who comes after you. So here is where we are. You now understand why you feel invisible at holiday parties after 50. You understand the 5 reasons women become invisible. Women's value is tied to youth and sexual availability. Invisibility is social control. Aging is associated with death. Social gatherings are performative spaces, and internalized invisibility. You understand how invisibility manifests. Conversational erasure, physical exclusion, being treated as functional, visual dismissal, being forgotten. You understand the psychological damage, erosion of self-worth, social withdrawal, loss of voice, chronic shame. And you have 10 tools to reclaim your presence: internal reframing, strategic preparation, physical assertiveness, strategic interruption, intentional connections, leaving with dignity, contribution-based visibility, finding your communities, reclaiming your voice, and modeling visibility for others. Now let me be very clear about something. Using these tools will not make everyone see you. It will not make the culture suddenly value older women. It will not erase ageism and sexism. Those forces are bigger than you. They are systemic, they are cultural, and they are not going away because you learned some strategies. But what these tools will do is protect you from internalizing the invisibility as your fault. They will give you agency in situations where you have felt powerless. They will allow you to reclaim your sense of self, even in spaces that try to erase you. And that is everything. Because the goal is not to make everyone see you. The goal is to stop believing that you do not deserve to be seen. The goal is to stop shrinking. The goal is to stop apologizing for existing. The goal is to walk into spaces with your head up and your voice strong and your presence unapologetic, knowing that whether or not anyone else sees you, you see yourself. And you know you matter. And that knowing is what saves you. Walter Riso teaches that the most important relationship you have is the relationship with yourself. And if that relationship is strong, if you see yourself, if you value yourself, if you refuse to internalize the culture's message that you are disposable, then external invisibility becomes survivable. It still hurts, it is still unjust, but it does not destroy you, because your worth is not dependent on their recognition. Your worth is intrinsic, and no amount of cultural erasure can change that. So if you are sitting here right now, realizing that you have been invisible for years, that you have been shrinking and silencing yourself, that you have been internalizing the message that you do not matter, I need you to hear this. You matter. You have always mattered. The fact that the culture refuses to see you does not change that truth. You are not invisible because something is wrong with you. You are invisible because something is wrong with the culture. And you are not required to keep participating in your own erasure. You are allowed to reclaim your presence. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to speak. You are allowed to exist loudly and unapologetically. And anyone who cannot handle that is not your people. Before you leave this video, I need you to do 4 things. First, go to the comments and type which psychological damage from earlier resonates most with you. Type 1 for erosion of self-worth. Type 2 for social withdrawal. Type 3 for loss of voice. Type 4 for chronic shame. Just type the number and see how many other women type the same one. You are not alone. Thousands of women are experiencing this. Second, choose 3 tools from this video. Write them down. Commit to practicing them at your next social event. Because knowing these tools will not help you. Practicing them will. Third, subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. Because next week, I am releasing a video about how to build a social circle after 50 when you feel like you have no friends. You need that video, so subscribe now and hit that bell. Fourth, share this video with one woman who needs it, someone who has felt invisible, someone who thinks it is her fault, someone who is shrinking. Send it to her. Let her know you are not alone, you are not broken, and you do not have to disappear. You are not invisible. You are being erased by a culture that fears your power, and your power is real. Your voice matters, your presence matters, you matter. And the more you believe that, the more you act like that is true, the more visible you become. Not to everyone, but to the people who matter, and to yourself, and that is enough. I will see you in the next video.